is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 5, Wolves of the Calla, Chapter 4, Palaver. Palaver? Palaver.
Palaverdi?
In this chapter, I'm starting to think maybe the wolves are wolves, after all. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the what? Sorry, Miles. How are you going to reply on Twitter with "I record with my balls, motherfucker," an instant before I start this podcast so that it pops up as a notification on my computer and distracts the shit out of me? Sir.
I mean, look, I'm here to keep you on toes, dude.
What? Okay. Guys, sorry, not a great start to the show. I don't even know what you were replying to. What were you talking about?
I was having a conversation with Mike Booch, who I think is a fan of yours.
Okay.
Maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think he's a fan of yours. But anyway, somebody on Twitter had asked us, the people at Smash Fiction, when we were going to have Roland in a match.
Oh, okay.
And I said, we can't have Roland in a match until I finish the last book, because having Roland in a match means I need to research Roland.
Right.
And I can't spoil myself. I'm not going to spoil myself, mainly due to this podcast, but also because I want to read the last book unspoiled. So as soon as I finish the last book, it's on. Like, we could totally have Roland in a match. And Mike Booch came in and he basically said something along the lines of, I do not record with my microphone. He who records with his microphone has forgotten the face of his father. And he said, I record with my heart. And I was like, well, shit, I don't record with my heart. What do I record with?
Oh, man. You're a
monster. I record with my balls. I mean, that's all I have going into everything I do. Is just like, well, here I am. Look at these balls.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I am Miles, and I did not expect that to be the start of the show. But I have read these books before, or at least this one and the next one.
And the next one, you're catching up finally.
Yeah. I'm officially on to the last book. I'm a number of chapters into the final book.
Yay!
Having finished the novella in Hearts and Atlantis that relates to the Dark Tower series on recommendation from some fans. It was a long and frequently boring ride, but picked up at the end, and I'm done with it. So now I'm finally reading the final book.
Woohoo! So yeah, guys, sorry we've been gone a little bit. I took a vacation, and then the week that that I came back was the 4th of July. Fell on that Tuesday, which is when we normally record. So it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But we're back, and I hope that you missed us. And
back for this week anyway.
What's that?
Back for this week anyway.
Right. Everybody, we are going to be going to a every other week schedule once we start on the what do you call it? The Game of Thrones episodes.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
That's not what I call it.
What do you call it?
I call it ASOIF or something. Whatever that. ASOIAF, because I have been refusing to acknowledge the existence of this show.
I really enjoy that you weren't even sure. You started to say the letters and then you were like, is it?
I can write it and I can read it, but I've never had to say it before.
You're acting all lofty, like, I call it this, and then you can't even remember what it is. You nerd.
Yeah, anyway.
So, yeah, that's going to be coming back on Sunday coming up, and we will be recording weekly on that. And since Miles does this, and he does another show, and he has his blog, I was like, maybe this is going to be a little bit much. Maybe we can tone it down and drop to every other week for Dark Tower while we are doing Game of Thrones, and then we'll come back to full time once we're done.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of free time. You know, you're not really busy at all ever. I'm the one here who definitely has so much podcasting work going on that it just completely overwhelms me every once in a while. So I appreciate you
phrase it that way, didn't I?
So I appreciate you giving me this break.
I'm just like, I have a hard time with admitting maybe I need a break. I have struggles with, viewing what I do as my job even sometimes, because there's a lot of time spent on social media. There's a lot of time spent watching TV.
It's a pretty badass job. I gotta say.
I can't pay my bills, but other than that, it's fine.
I mean, you can pay some of your bills.
I can pay almost all my bills. I'm at about 80% right now.
Hey.
So, that's better than a lot of people. My fucking student loans, I swear to God, if I didn't have those, I would be just fine. I'd be perfectly fine. But no.
Yep.
So, yeah, that, the schedule's going to go off on every other week for the 7 weeks that Game of Thrones is on, and then we'll go back to normal. And after that, I will start recording the leftovers with Rashawn on Monday. So,
yeah.
And
so we're going to be off next week, I assume?
Yes, first week of Game of Thrones we will take off. And those of you who are patrons just know that yesterday I recorded my episode on the Godfather movies with Rashawn, which was a lot of fun. I spent all of Sunday live on Facebook watching them. I'd never seen them before. It was really fun. I really enjoyed them. I even enjoyed the horrible third one just because of how bad it was. Like, it was so bad, guys. Seriously.
I could tell. I checked in every once in a while you were live on the third one, and I could tell that you were having a good time.
It was just so absurd. Like, there were parts that it was impossible not to laugh. And Sofia Coppola, is god awful. I couldn't believe how bad she was.
I know, she's the worst.
But I was afraid, I had never seen them. Rashawn has only seen the first two. She refused to watch the third one. I was afraid that the third one would be so bad that it would leave a bad taste in my mouth, and that when I went to record, it would influence me too much. But the first two are just so distinctly different that the third one doesn't even feel like it's part of the story to me. So I was able to completely just, I went on a little bit of a rant at the start of the episode, and then I put it out of my mind, and we just talked about the first two. So it was really fun. So if you're a patron, that's going to be coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're not a patron, you should be, because I bet you'd enjoy listening to that. And yeah, that's about all I wanted to start off with. So,
for those who are interested, my tweet about recording my balls has now been retweeted by @UnspoiledShow.
I don't know. Who? What? Who would do that? That's crazy. Yeah, I'm trying to cut back on everything, speaking of my schedule, a little bit, and I just finished the Penny Dreadful recordings that I was doing on Mondays. And you didn't watch Penny Dreadful. And it's
I have not seen it yet, no.
One of my favorite shows that I've covered, but that finale was the worst thing that's ever happened to television. It's so...
Wow, really?
Let me tell you.
Think about what you just said.
Let me tell you something. Imagine a show let's just take one of the greatest shows ever, Breaking Bad. And let's just say that they added all these new characters and start down this amazing storyline in season 3 where Gus Fring shows up and the cousins show up and they're this whole thing. And then they just decide at the finale to be like, I guess they all just decided not to do it and walked away. And then the show ended. Oh, and main character also just completely loses all agents. It's like they set up this wonderful thing that I was so excited about, and they went nowhere with it. this is not the Penny Dreadful show. But guys, seriously, you should watch the show and just not watch the finale because it will make you so angry. So that's why I'm going to be able to record during the week on Game of Thrones. It's perfect timing because Penny Dreadful just finished.
Yeah. Excellent.
So yeah, let's talk about this book that we're here for.
Why are we here?
Right?
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, what did you think of this chapter?
It is really... So I do these writing sessions during the week in the mornings, and the person that comes to them usually is Candace, and she listens to our show.
Right.
And Candace...
I know she does.
Candace was talking to me, and she started laughing like out of nowhere. We weren't even really talking about this. And she said, I have to tell you that this morning I was listening to the most recent episode of Dark Tower, and you get to the part where Roland doesn't tell anybody that this is happening to Susan or Susanna while he's also realizing maybe something happened to him and his friends didn't tell him.
Uh-huh.
And you just go, does that make you uncomfortable, Roland? And she said that she could not stop laughing. And I was sort of hopeful that that was going to be taken care of here, that he might say something, you know, since she's also starting to experience like belly pains and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe. And is it supposed to be that she isn't aware that she's pregnant either, or just that she's lying to Eddie?
I mean, okay, well, I'm not going to comment on that because I know the answer to that. So,
but it's not like it hasn't been expressly said, and I've just missed it.
That's correct.
I don't know what that means. That's correct what I just said, or it's been correct that it's...
It has not been expressly said yet.
Okay. So, like, if she does know, and Roland is aware that she knows, and he's just respecting the fact that she doesn't want to tell Eddie, clearly, because she hasn't, then, okay, that's one thing. But if she doesn't know what's going on at all in any way, and he hasn't said anything, that's, like, unforgivable to me. Like, she's in potentially some pretty intense danger. Like, it doesn't get much more dramatic than demon spawn inside of your body. Right? That's kind of like, that's as bad as it's going to get. So, yeah, I will restrain judgment a little bit until I know more about what her situation is. But if it turns out that she didn't know and Roland hasn't said anything this whole time, my estimation of him is going to drop a little bit more because that's just nonsense, sir.
Let me ask you this. If that turns out to be the case, will it surprise you?
No, that's not the same thing.
Right. No, I know.
But it won't surprise me in that I know that Roland is like, you know, looks out for number one always. But it will surprise me in that it feels like something that if she is pregnant and she's able to go back in time to an era where she can actually like not like Eddie and Jake were like invisible, but she's actually going back to like get her money hopefully, and so she's going to be fully visible like her own self. She could maybe get an abortion, you know, and not have this demon spawn if she knows about it, which would be great. I mean, just take care of that and just get that out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me that he keeps information to himself because that's what he does. But it's sort of not the most practical approach if there's anything that she can do about it. Which it potentially is. So
he says, you know, at one point, and I'm not excusing him in any way because I agree with you, but he does say that like when she wakes up at the beginning of this chapter, and they're like, "How did you sleep?" and he's like closely watching her, and she clearly does not think anything happened to her during the night, right?
Right.
And when they're talking, he thinks to himself, like, he's not going to reveal anything until like his intuition indicates that he should.
Mm-hmm.
And when at one point he says nothing to report.
Yeah.
And he thinks to himself that it's not entirely a lie. And
whatever you need to get you to sleep at night, Roland.
I mean, right? Exactly. But in his mind, like, that is exactly how he thinks about it. Like, I don't think he's lying to himself.
But what you're talking about is about her getting up and going and eating frogs. I'm just talking about the fact of her pregnancy, which isn't really the same thing.
True, but but doesn't revealing her pregnancy to her kind of entail being like, also there's this personality that thinks it's the mother?
I mean, you and I, as reasonable human beings, might think that.
Right.
But I'm trying to be unreasonable, like Roland is, and approach it the way I think he would, which is to parse out exactly as much information as is, like, totally necessary. And I feel like at least telling her that she's pregnant is, like, bare minimum a smart idea, just practically, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Roland has many blind spots. And they prevent him from doing either the right or the intelligent thing sometimes.
It's just the kind of thing that, like, I understand being so practical that you want to keep things from people if it's not really going to help the situation. And maybe at this time it doesn't feel like it will. But, you know, once she starts to be having pains and feeling off, I just feel like, you know, you're going to be going to a town, hopefully, and they might have some medicines, like, just, you know, help her out. Because the last thing you need is for something to be going wrong and her to, like, be either down for the count for an indeterminate amount of time because she's, like, struggling with her health in general.
Mm-hmm.
Or who knows what the gestation period of a demon is? It could be a week. You don't know if it's going to, like, how long does she have? He doesn't know that. Maybe they should, like, be on their guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I just went and saw Alien Covenant a few weeks ago, so maybe I'm just a little paranoid. But that shit happened real fast. Anyway, yeah, Toadash.
Toadash. So they have this big conversation about Toadash.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and okay, so remember last time when I was like, I thought that the muffin balls made them disappear?
Yeah.
Roland had warned them that, like, hey, just so you know, these muffins will give you weird dreams.
Really vivid
but they're
dreams.
Just dreams.
Yeah.
Well, what the fuck, though? That feels totally connected, but now it seems like it's not connected, so what was that? Am I wrong?
Like, you mean why did the muffin balls even come up?
Yeah.
That
seems like a weird thing to, like, put in the dialogue and then have it be a completely unrelated experience, because that sounds exactly like he's talking about what happens to them 2 paragraphs later, and it feels like that's been set up for us to, like, understand what's going on. And then it turns out to be not related at all. And as of right now, 2 chapters later, those muffin balls don't appear to have, like, any effect on anybody yet.
Yeah, I think
that's just confusing.
I think they're just. I mean, yeah, I think they're just set dressing, you know. But and maybe also a sort of clumsily intentional red herring.
Well, I fell for it. Thanks a lot, Mr. King.
I don't know. I'm honestly not sure.
Okay, so yeah, because when we were reading about this, I just remembered, like, you know, that seems like it was set up specifically for me to think that, and then it doesn't go anywhere, and I don't really understand why the red herring would even be there. Like, because then, you know, Roland talks about how the Mannies would go around and try and find a spot using, like, divining rods and shit where they could go Toadash. So then I was like, well, maybe he could tell that this spot was a prime location for them to go Toadash, and he just told them, oh, yeah, those muffin balls can make you trip like crazy. But
I don't think he meant for them to go, though.
I didn't think so either, but it's just very weird to me that he would like say something like that seems so perfectly timed with their experience, and then it turns out it has nothing to do with it at all.
I mean, maybe it helped facilitate it in a weird way. Like, maybe they were, maybe what Roland didn't know was that they were in a prime spot for it. And so, like, even these people from another world who had never, like, been Todash before, like, if they ate the muffin balls, they would be a little bit more susceptible to it. I'm honestly just, like, headcanoning the shit out of this. Like, I don't know. Okay. But that's a possibility. Because that's kind of, at least in the world of fictional storyline narratives, that can be the way drugs work, right? Mind expansion. Right.
Which is what I initially thought that it was. Like that when he says that the Mannies go Todash, I thought that it was them taking muffin balls.
Like they used to go to the desert and eat fucking muffin balls.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were doing peyote or something.
Yeah. Well, maybe they did and he just didn't know about it.
But then why would he say that?
Maybe he didn't know they ate muffin balls.
But
like maybe he doesn't know very much about these things. Like his muffin ball education might not be up to par. Remember, he was never the best student.
Listen, you're barely making sense anymore. So let's move on.
I barely make sense at the best of times.
That's true. So they are talking about what happened when they went back, and Jake and Eddie are both like freaked out a little bit. And they're saying like, well, there's clearly something's kind of wrong. We're not really entirely sure like how bad it is. Mm-hmm. And Jake goes and gets his train book.
Right.
And it still has the author that it had before on the cover, unlike the changed one that they saw in the shop.
Yeah.
Which, just kind of confuses everything further. They're just like, the only thing of significance that they can piece together is that the author's name in the new version was 19 letters long.
Right. And they're seeing coincidences like everywhere now. Mm-hmm. Like, the fact that Calvin Tower's original name was Torrin and that Torrin is Dutch, mm-hmm. and the mansion that Jake used to come through into Roland's world was on Dutch Hill.
Right.
Like, it's they're everywhere, and they have a really kind of interesting conversation for a second, to me at least, about Dickens, mm-hmm. and how like some people think he uses coincidence too often in his work. And Roland's like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like, whoever thinks that never heard of Ka.
Yeah, it's I haven't read enough Dickens to like really have any educated opinion on that. But if that's their complaint about Dickens, I just want to be like, have you read any Dickens? Because there's a lot more to complain about than that. And I have read a little, not a lot, but like, come on. They are so over the top that the coincidence is like the last thing that you should be worrying about. So it's fine, guys. Just find something else.
Not a big Dickens reader myself.
It's just, he's very anti-capitalist, which I'm a big fan of, but he does it in such a heavy-handed way that even I am like, oh God, okay.
Will you shut up for a second?
A little bit,
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, they start talking about what happened. Jake pulls out the book. There's 19 letters in Claudia y Inez Bachmann, mm-hmm. which is I wonder, is the Y included in that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it is. So, interesting, just because Roland mentioned that in Megis, the Y added to the name is an honorific.
Yeah, I was, because I had just, the name Inez and the name Claudia both can be Spanish names. So I read that as Claudia and Inez.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I thought it was like a pair of sisters or something. But apparently not, or maybe it is and they just haven't thought of that. Bachmann is not a Spanish name, obviously.
No, clearly. But that could be a marriage thing.
That's true. But then they wouldn't both have it. They wouldn't be sisters anyway. Or they could be sisters-in-law.
No, I think it's one person.
Yeah, I guess.
But so they start talking about the paper. There's a brief conversation where they're like, Roland, do you know about lawyers? And he's like, fucking A, do I know about lawyers?
Roland.
And all the lawyers in Gilead, man.
Yeah.
Wanted to kill him.
Yeah, I'm shocked that the guy who likes to just shoot people real quick hates lawyers.
Right?
I'm blown away. Who knew?
Yeah, the gunslinger is really not a huge fan of pencil pushing attorneys, huh? Unbelievable.
Anyway, I'm letting that just sit there. I'm not getting into it anymore. Look at my restraint, everybody. What's up?
There's another name that they saw at the bottom of the paper next to Calvin Tower, which was Richard Patrick Sayer. That's 19 letters.
Right.
And it said that according to Eddie, Tower owned a vacant lot on the corner of 46th Street and 2nd Avenue. The vacant lot, Jake said, the one with the rose in it. Mm-hmm. Tower signed this agreement on July 15th. On July 15th, 1976, Sombra Corporation gave him $100,000. What he gave them, so far as I can tell, was a promise not to sell the lot to anyone but Sombra for the next year, to take care of it, and then give Sombra the first right of purchase, assuming he hadn't sold it to them by then anyway, which he hadn't when we were there, but the agreement still had a month and a half to run. Mm-hmm. And the $100,000's all spent. So,
yeah, this is like, when I was reading it, I couldn't quite put my finger on what felt so weird about it. And then when Susanna breaks it down, she's basically like, so they gave him $100,000 to basically be like, well, I'll try not to sell it to anybody else for a year. After that, like, maybe, whatever.
Yeah, the way she puts it is, I, Calvin Tower, agree to think about selling you my vacant lot.
Yep.
You pay me $100,000 and I'll think about it for a whole year. When I'm not drinking coffee and playing chess with my friends, that is. And when the year's up, maybe I'll sell it to you and maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I'll just auction it off to the highest bidder. And if you don't like it, sweet cheeks, you just go spit.
Yep. And that's what it was, because I was like reading the thing and I was like, this is a really weird agreement, because it, like, I was interpreting it as, you get to keep it for one more year and then it's ours. But I was like I was thinking that, even though the words did not say that, you know what I mean? Because for me, that was like the only thing that could make sense to give somebody $100,000 for.
Right.
So yeah, that, when she points it out, I'm like, that's why that felt weird. Okay. Like, Jesus. So really what they like kind of start to put together this guy's like life story to a degree, like out of thin air, basically.
Yeah.
And they come to the conclusion that his family was put in charge of guarding this lot with the rose on it.
Guarding the rose, yeah.
And that he knows somewhere deep down that he is not supposed to sell, but everything logical with a giant failing business tells him that of course I should take this money. Right. So part of him wants to sell and is like kind of preparing to sell, and the rest of him is like defiant, and he's really struggling with this bizarre urge to hold on to it, even though logically it makes no sense to keep it.
Right. And they figure out that the reason for that is because he just loves books, basically. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, Donald Trump reference in this chapter.
Oh, my God. I totally saw it, and I just wanted to gouge my eyes out. Oh, guys, listen.
I mean, he's described as some rich guy on TV.
You know?
Which is the perfect definition of Donald Trump.
You know, like, I'm just delighted that hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
In, like, at that point, 30 years now.
It hasn't changed since November.
I mean...
He's just a rich guy on TV.
I mean...
He's just on TV more now.
Guys, listen, someday... a long ways from now, we're going to be listening to this episode, And we're going to be like, oh my God, remember when Donald Trump was president?
Things are so much better now that The Rock is in the Oval Office.
Oh my God, did you see that?
Of course I saw it.
What?
What do you take me for? Every wrestling website reported it.
I can't. This planet. I need to move. That's what needs to happen. I wonder how much money I could get for these bookshelves. For my mic. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
So I saw that. I was just like, good God, I can't escape this fucking man.
There actually is an explanation here for like why they know like what's going on with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Eddie at one point says, and yeah, I'm making this up, except somehow it doesn't feel that way.
Right.
And Roland says, perhaps you shared his kef. More likely you touched him, as my old friend Alen used to.
Oh,
So,
I didn't even catch that. Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So somebody up in here's got the touch. Or at least
It's
did the...
a little touch.
at least did the touch at one point here. Tried to... God. Donald Trump!
Oh, I love to... What are condominiums, Susanna asked, frowning. It sounds like some newfangled kind of spice rack. I love it so much. I love things like that. My grandmother one time was with my mom. They were picking out a car, and my grandma goes, all these new cars are all roundy. They all look like toilet bowls. I mean, they do, though. Good job, Grandma. She wasn't wrong. I love when people who are like completely out of touch with whatever they're talking about nail it really hard. And for no good reason. You're just kind of like, how did you get that right? Sounds like a kind of spice rack. A little bit. You stick people in there instead. But sure.
I mean, yeah, it amounts to the same thing. Honey, will you get me down the broke teachers, please? I need to season this eternal stew.
Oh my God, I'm just realizing something. So Susanna's having a little bit of a personality break here, where she really snaps at Eddie at one point, and Eddie can't shake it.
Where are you talking about here?
It's not right here. It's when she's talking about buying it, and she says that I have plenty of money.
Right.
And Jake suggests that her stepdad maybe ran off with that money. And she gets offended. Pissed. And then Eddie's like, well, you know, money makes people do crazy things. And she just goes, how the hell would you know? And it's not just what she says. It's the expression on her face when she says it that feels like she's somebody else for an instant. And Eddie can't shake it. Roland can see it's still bothering him like a little bit later. And I like, is this like baby infecting her with this new personality? Is it coming from that? And as it's growing, it's coming to the surface more and more without her being able to control it. Which, you know, that sucks. And I felt bad for Eddie in that moment because, yeah, it was a little harsh, lady.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be funny if she said it as a joke, then I would be able to laugh at it. But when you really are just like, poor boy.
Right.
Like, geez, all right. That's not necessary, lady.
There's another bit here that I really appreciated, which was, or, you know, it struck out to me. Mm-hmm. Which was when they're talking about how Tower probably, you know, always is thinking like, why don't I just sell the stupid lot?
Right.
Like, why don't I sell it? What is wrong with me? But always knows deep down that he's not supposed to. Mm-hmm. And Roland thinks he's been waiting for them. And right. Eddie says waiting for the cavalry, like Fort Ord in the last 10 minutes of a John Wayne movie. And Roland looks at him and says he's been waiting for the white, which we've laughed about before. The white. But right after he says that, Susanna holds up her hands and she's like, then I guess he isn't waiting for me.
Yep. I was like, well, I'm glad that Stephen King maybe after he wrote it, he heard himself a little bit.
Yeah.
And was just like, oh, you know what? Maybe that wasn't the best choice. Maybe I better address that a little bit.
And Roland just says, yes, he is. Which...
It's like he doesn't hear the joke. Like he doesn't get it.
Well, I'm not... Like, I still think the whole, like, the white thing is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And like, blackly humorous.
Get it?
No
Get
pun
it?
intended.
Do you get it? You're racist.
But I don't know. It is just a little moment where Roland is like, dude, this isn't Skin Killer. Like, and I'm not, again, it is, because it's what we talk about when we talk about white and black all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, we're seeing Roland, or King through Roland, being like, yo, when I'm talking about the white in this book, I'm not talking about white people.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that, of course, is that, he would be like, well, okay, what are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about, heroes, right? Or good people or something. Okay, what are they called? Well, they're called the white. Okay, well, do you see where that's an issue?
Yeah, exactly.
But still, I noticed it. I thought it was worth mentioning.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's just the ongoing black is bad, white is good. Like, it's just, yeah,
so, They end up having this idea, though, to go back in time to Susanna's
when.
Grabbing her dough that she has, and then getting to the place where they just were in Todash, and
buying it up,
buying the vacant lot with the rose right out from under the Sombra Corporation, which they're pretty sure is not a legit thing in any sense of the word.
I just can't get over how much they just say, oh, all we have to do is go back in time to your place and then, bounce out of there back in time to the exact time that we want to our place. And they talk about it for 10 minutes as if it's not a big deal. And it has to be Roland who has to jump in and be like, hey, that's not something that we have any ability to do in any way whatsoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are y'all talking about it like it's going through a fucking revolving door? There was one door that I was able to go get you all through. And when I came out, that door vanished forever.
Right.
That's not some shit that's just hanging out, that even if you hadn't walked all this way, you couldn't just turn back around and go get that door again.
Right. And he's like, we don't even know, before he says, before I found those doors on the beach, I had no idea that shit was a thing. And I have been around for a long time. And you're talking about not just finding one of them, but finding two of them.
Right.
Yep.
And just how picky they're being about well, it has to be within 3 months of her disappearing or so. Somewhere right in there. I mean,
they're planning it well.
It's such a great plan. And it turns out there is a way to do it, but they're all talking about it before they know that, as if that's not even a factor. And I'm like, guys... Right. I mean, it's great to be hopeful and everything, but maybe also stay a tiny bit rooted in reality here.
Well, right, but as Roland points out, to them, they're used to this idea of doors between worlds.
Right.
That has defined all three of them, that has defined their entire association with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Has been defined by doors between worlds. So naturally, it seems like, of course we can go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
We do it all the time. Going back in time, you know what I call that? I call that Tuesday. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's and Roland is the one who's like you said, has to remind them that their experience is not the only experience.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which you'd think they would have thought of.
Right.
I get that it is their experience. I get that, but they have to know how, what a giant deal this was for Roland to come across these three doors.
Right.
This was never something that he was ever able to do at any other point in his life.
Part of me also thinks, though, that, like, they've been trained to a certain extent by Roland. You know, this whole Ka thing is almost like, you know, I mean, what does he say? There'll be water if God wills it? Like,
Right.
This whole thing is like, well, it kind of fosters this mentality of, we need this, so it'll happen, and we should be ready when it does.
Right.
And I'm almost surprised when I think about it more that it is Roland who is being the practical one here. Because you would think Roland would have that attitude of like, well, clearly we were meant to do this. You know?
Yeah, I guess
like,
so.
why else would you have gone Todash and seen this document?
Right.
You know, like, this is all part of the wheel. This is all part of Ka. Like, clearly this is going to happen. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it before, but it seems slightly out of character because Roland's not a pragmatist, really.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, Roland is like a weird sort of idealist. Like,
I'm not agreeing with you on this one. Go ahead, continue. Let me hear your argument. No pressure.
No, you're fine. He doesn't see practical concerns as clearly as he sees the greater vision.
Okay.
He's all about getting to the tower, and he'll do what it takes to get there. And they've talked about before how he's not terribly imaginative, and he's not terribly, like, you know, he doesn't really get this idea of the impossible being a thing. Because, like, how could he possibly have gone on if he did?
I don't think being practical and believing in the impossible are even, like... Because he's somebody who lives in a place where things that our world considers impossible have been proven possible time and time again.
Right.
So I think that his being a pragmatist is simply rooted in a different reality than ours is.
That's fair. Being pragmatic, I will say, I guess, is part of his personality. But if I were to say, is Roland is Roland a realist or is Roland an idealist? I'd call him an idealist. I'd call him a bizarre sort of fanatic visionary.
A fanatic, I would agree with. Idealist, I definitely don't, because he's very much like, well, you know, if I need to kill some people, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but in the service of his ideals, in the service of what he believes in.
But he doesn't really believe that that's the right thing to do. He just thinks it's the necessary thing to do. I think that might be where the pragmatism comes in. Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons King has that come out in his character here is to set us up for what happens immediately after.
Right.
Because what happens before they can finish this conversation is that Callahan interrupts them.
Right.
And the rest of the chapter shows us Roland suddenly becoming a gunslinger in his world sense of the term.
Right.
Which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, he's kind of an asshole all of a sudden. Like, it's not like all of a sudden, because he's always an asshole. But he is much more like... There's almost like a bureaucratic thing that happens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. He slips into a very specific role. Mm-hmm. And that role is not, not the nicest thing. Right?
It's like this guy came up to him and had Form 48C filled out. And he's like, I told you to fill out Form 49B. Please go back and refill out Form 49B like I told you. And the guy comes back with Form 49A. And he's like, holy shit, we went over this already, buddy. Please go back and fill out the form that I asked for. And the guy is like sweating and crying, like, I just need to get medicine for my mom. And Roland's like, I don't fucking care. We talked about this. I've been very clear.
Have you got a 27B stroke 6?
Yeah.
One last thing I do want to say before we move on is that Susanna at one point is like, if we run into coffee, we're taking it, right?
Oh, I know, right? I didn't even think of that.
I sympathized so hard. I was like, oh, God.
Yeah,
If I was going to be a gunslinger in a foreign world, I would need fucking coffee.
I think about that all the time, like being in places where there is a food that I'm like kind of reliant on. When I moved down to Texas, there were a lot of foods that I didn't realize were like difficult to find in other places than where I was living in Philly. So I had been like in a kind of habit in terms of like trying to lose weight and everything that was working for me really well. And I was very reliant on some things that I simply cannot find down here. And I can't tell you how much that fucked me up. And caffeine is just a whole other animal because you don't get the caffeine your body's used to, and it fucks you up for a while before you start to become used to it again, to not having it. So, yeah, I can imagine that just being like this shining beacon on a hill. Coffee. Oh, like a holy grail, except a coffee cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I need coffee. So anyway, Callahan shows up. Turns out he came to this world in 1983. And he finds out that Eddie came in 87 and asks if the Red Sox won the World Series.
I love that, yes. Oh, bless him.
And Eddie tells him about the Bill Buckner fumble.
I
don't know if you know.
I didn't know about this, no.
It's infamous. And yeah, I'm happy for Father Callahan that he didn't have to be a Red Sox fan in 86. Like, because that's awful.
I don't know what
Sports are important, is my point. Anyway. So Callahan talks to them. Sorry. Sports are important. Sports are so important. I believe that. Anyway, so yeah. Callahan talks to them, and basically Roland is like, we're gunslingers, you need something. And again, he's speaking in this weird, almost like this very bizarre, faintly archaic speech.
Right.
Like the way he's saying.
I wouldn't say it was faint either. And that's pretty archaic.
Fair enough. At one point he says, do you come for aid and succor? There was only mild curiosity in his voice, but Eddie Dean felt a deep, deep chill. The words seemed to hang there, full of resonance. Nor was he alone in feeling that. And then Callahan says, that is not for me to say. And Roland says, do you know you come to the line of Eld? For these are mine, sure, as I am theirs. We are round and roll as we do, and you know what we are.
Okay, buddy. First of all, can I just say that when you just said, do you come for aid and succor? I forgot that line, and I heard Aiden's succor. Like, Aiden's lollipop. Did you
like
come? Did you want this? Aiden gave it to us. It's,
yeah, like, the person's name is Aiden, and, like, his or her family, like, was in the sucking industry.
I was thinking it was, a blow pop, but sure.
I mean, I don't know what they sucked. I didn't say anything about that. You fill that in your own head, Natasha.
Well, that's what they call in Texas lollipops. They call them suckers in a lot of the South.
Yeah.
Which I just find hilarious. Why would you ever call them that, guys? It's terrible.
I mean, I don't call them that in Arizona all the time.
It's the worst. We don't.
In fact, I think I've heard sucker here more than lollipop.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Down here, absolutely. I say lollipop, and people are like, "What?" Because they picture lollipops as being the big flat ones that are swirly. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I've like seen those in movies, but I've never seen one.
It is. When I graduated high school, I cut up my my robe and re-sewed it back together to make it into a tube dress. Cut my graduation hat up and pinned it to my hair in this certain way, and then got a giant lollipop about a foot across and licked it on my way down the aisle to get my diploma.
Right on.
That's me. What's up, guys?
That's Natasha Kingston, ladies and gentlemen.
So yeah. Anyway. So yeah, Callahan. So that's where the name of the town comes from, I assume? Wolves of the Calla? Callahan?
I mean,
probably.
Maybe not a coincidence, considering we're starting to think there aren't any more of those. But so Eddie, when Roland is doing this, Eddie thinks to himself, like, no, dude, we're not gunslingers. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Like, we're just people who are lost out of our own world. But he corrects himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he'd known since the woods, where Roland had taught them to aim with the eye, shoot with the mind, kill with the heart. Wait, sorry, I missed something. No, I didn't. That doesn't make sense. Anyway.
What just happened?
Not 3, not 4, 1. That Roland should finish them so, complete them so, was horrible. He was filled with poison, and had kissed them with his poisoned lips. He had made them gunslingers, and had Eddie really thought there was no work left for the line of Arthur Eld in this mostly empty and husked-out world? That they would simply be allowed to toddle along the path of the beam until they got to Roland's Dark Tower and fixed whatever was wrong there? Well, guess again.
Yeah, I mean, like, sure you did. I did. To a degree, you know, like...
And Jake is like, they'll ask for our help, though, right? And Callahan says, you'd have to convince them. And Roland is like, no.
That's not what we do, buddy.
Yeah. Convincing isn't what we do. We deal in lead.
And Callahan has a hard time keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
He keeps bringing it up. Well, you know, they'd have to be persuaded, and Roland just keeps being like, dude, holy shit. No. We don't persuade jack shit. That's not our job. We get told what to do and we do it. And also the fact that this guy offers payment is incredibly insulting.
Right, absolutely, yeah. That's not the point. Roland says there are 3 questions, and if all 3 of them are answered yes, then that's it. Mm-hmm. You know, then we are on the job, and nothing you can say or do will change that.
Right.
And we were going to do it our way.
Yep. Which, I mean, that's a hell of a position to be in. To just be like, yeah, you know, I mean, we'll help you if we feel like it. And also, they basically have all the power. They're in this position that it's sort of like, it's incredibly lopsided. Mm-hmm. I feel a little bad, honestly, for Callahan, because it just doesn't seem fair in some ways.
Oh, it doesn't for sure, but at the same time, this is kind of the, you know, I don't know, this is kind of the point in the book where I started feeling like, you know, oh yeah, that's right, they are gunslingers. Mm-hmm. Like, these people are the fucking heroes of the story. And you all who want their help don't make demands.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I like seeing the effect of, you know, because we see them so frequently, at least we have seen them so frequently only among one another, mm-hmm. the quartet, that it's nice to see, you know, what would someone think? You walk out of the woods and you're like, hey, we're looking for some gunslingers, right? And you see Roland and Eddie and Susanna and Jake, and they're like, yeah, we're them. What's up? I don't know. It's a moment that I can really easily imagine being in a movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I can very easily imagine the sort of music that would accompany it.
A cinematic moment.
Sure, or the trailer for a movie even. So anyway, Callahan talks to them and basically explains their situation, which we learned about in the prologue. talks about the wolves. I don't think we really get any new information there.
No, but he does call them creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because, I had been assuming that they were a bunch of, basically, slavers. Just,
right.
Terrible people.
Yeah.
But the way that he calls them creatures, it doesn't feel like a turn of phrase that you would use just to imply that somebody is a bad person. It, just so depraved as to no longer really be human. It doesn't feel that way. It felt like he was really saying they are these things, which makes me go, all right, so what? Maybe I totally misjudged and they're actually actual wolves or wolf-like.
Interesting.
Miles. I don't know. Are they?
Maybe. I mean, it's not like I've read this book before. And Susanna goes off on him a little bit, on Callahan as well as Eddie a little bit here in this chapter. Because Callahan at one point mentions that they're a little bit cleverer than he expected.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, really?"
Yep.
But she gets cut off a little bit by her belly not feeling well for some strange reason, which probably
yeah, it's
is
almost like her being angry, got that thing woke up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a little bit. And that's when Callahan tells them that he has a piece of the fucking wizard's rainbow under the floorboards of his church, and its name is Black 13. And it's come alive.
That's interesting. It came alive. Why? The pink one, we didn't really see it before it was being handled by people.
Right.
So it was just going when we came into the story. So that's interesting to me, the concept that, if somebody else had it, and maybe either didn't know how to use it, or just didn't want to use it, that it just wouldn't have been on. And it seems as if this guy, didn't turn it on. It's not like it doesn't sound like he touched it and all of a sudden, oh shit, and now it won't turn back off. It seems like their presence turned it on, which is real weird. I'm curious about that. I also feel bad for him because he basically gets kind of embarrassed by Roland because he tries to be like, I'll give this to you if you'll do it. And they're like, Roland's like, I'm sorry. First of all, we don't take payment for things, which I think you know. Second of all, you don't want that thing anyway. So don't try and pretend that you're doing us a favor when you are going to beg us to take that shit with us anyway.
Yeah, and Callahan is like, okay, yes, you're right.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
They have a conversation after that for a minute where Roland is like, what do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, he seems like he's a decent guy.
Mm-hmm.
Honest.
Yep.
Although Eddie does point out Calla and Callahan. Okay, see, here's the thing. This is the thing. I just found it again right here. Something that I've been talking about since I started trying to pronounce the name of this goddamn book forever ago. Susanna says, I think it's only a coincidence. Surely not everything we encounter on our path is Ka, is it? I mean, these don't even sound the same. And she pronounced them Calla with the tongue up, making the broad A sound, Callahan with the tongue down, making a much sharper A sound.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, Calla's Spanish in our world, like many of the words you remember from Meiji's Roland. It means street or square, in which case, shouldn't it be Kaya?
This is the exact conversation that we had before we started this book.
I'm saying.
Yep.
It's right here.
Yep.
This is the page. Shouldn't it be Kaya Bryn Sturgis? But if it's Kaya Bryn Sturgis, they would never have noticed the similarity between Calla and Callahan.
So, you think that it's Calla?
No, I think it's Calla, and Stephen King doesn't know what a double L sound is in Spanish.
Oh.
That's what I think.
Okay, I've got you.
I think it should be Calla because she straight up says it's a Spanish word.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's the issue is that Calla and Callahan are
Calla and Callahan.
Okay, gotcha.
So anyway, I'm not crazy, y'all, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I meant to bring this up too. I posted this in the last actual blog post for the previous episode, but in this section of this particular book copy that I have, we have illustrations throughout this one. And the illustration of Susanna in the bog eating a frog, I feel like a Dr. Seuss book. She is white as fuck. She is a Caucasian brunette woman. Come on. Can we not? Maybe it's supposed to be that the actual person, Mia, that she is playing in her mind, that she switches into, is a white woman? But
Roland does ask at one point, he wonders what color Mia is.
But if she is, A, we don't know that yet, and B, she doesn't change what she looks like in the moment. Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that.
It's probably some... I mean, if she is a white woman, it's probably some symbolic bullshit they're going for. If it's not, then what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, right.
If she's not white, then what are you doing? Yeah, so... also, there's a bit here where Roland says that Eddie and Jake both kind of jumped when they heard the big farmer's name, Wayne Overholser.
Right, which I'm really impressed that they remember well enough for that to have made any impression on them. Because God knows I didn't remember anything about this. I had no idea why they were having the reaction they were having.
Yep, something by Wayne D. Overholser. That's what Calvin Tower said.
Yep.
So... and if you tell me that's a coincidence, Susanna, I'll tell you to kiss my white boy ass.
And she's like, well, damn, no need to go there.
All right. So... then... She has more gas. And she's like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Give me some Tums or fucking bottle of something, whatever. And Jake is freaking out because he pulled Charlie the Choo-Choo back out. And now the name Beryl Evans is gone.
It's gone. There's no author on that shit at all now.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
The only thing on the title page or the copyright page is copyright 1936, which are 4 numbers that add up to 19.
That's pretty crazy.
And that's it.
You know what would be so funny?
What's
not
that?
really, but it would amuse me in a kind of annoying way, would be if Stephen King decided that he was going to say, that guy's name has 19 letters in it. Those numbers add up to 19, but none of them actually did. That you counted the numbers, because he just assumed people wouldn't check. And he was just getting tired of having to go through everything and count it before he posted it. And he was just like, yeah, I don't know. It's 19. It's fine. Nobody will check. And then that turned into this huge conspiracy theory about how well, maybe they all think everything has 19 letters and it doesn't. Maybe it's just him being that they're just they're being possessed somehow,
That's what your editor's for, dude.
I would love that so much. Because I'm not going through this and adding it up and counting the letters. I'm not doing. When he says it has 19 letters, I'm like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. Sure.
I don't know. I feel that way about Song, Ice and Fire theory sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's the first one I wrote about was the one where it's they switched out Jane Westerling for a double.
Right.
Because when Jamie sees her, he describes her as having narrow hips,
mm-hmm.
and Caitlin had made such a big deal about her having good childbearing hips.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, well, it's just they made a mistake. Martin made a mistake. And I'm like, well, you know what? If that was me, then I would do two things. First thing, I would get a new editor.
Mm-hmm.
And second thing, I would write that shit into the story because it's there now.
Yeah. Be like, it's really weird. After her baby came, her hips just collapsed. And it's this weird, it's a little known ailment called hip prolapse that affected many women in that era. And that explains it. There it is.
Oh no, man! I would read that. I would read if I were him. I would read the essay that I wrote. Where at one point I said, "Hey, I respect this author a little bit too much to believe that he just screwed up."
I mean, he got some of that color wrong.
Yeah, that was 2010 when I wrote that, and I've learned much, and my opinions have been altered a little bit, but I would have just been like, well, fuck it. I guess I'm doing that then. I guess she is a double and her baby is still alive. What's up?
Yeah, I kind of can't help but wonder sometimes if, with his work being as scrutinized as it is, he doesn't get tempted to just go with some crazy ass fan theory because he's like, actually, they have pointed out that could work out, and maybe the thing that I was going to do was kind of boring or too predictable, so maybe I should do this crazy thing that I just read.
I absolutely would do that if I were him.
Right?
Do you think that the reason that it's taking the book so long to come out is that he can't decide? Like, he keeps getting derailed because he finds new fan theories?
That would explain so much, to be honest.
Yeah, like he's like, shit, which one do I use now? Fuck.
I love that idea. I want to go with that. That's my canon now.
Yep, let's do it. Anyway, so that's this chapter.
So yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying this book so far. It's full of surprises.
I like this book a lot.
I feel bad for Callahan because this guy is just, he really walked into this thinking he was just going to be like, all right, so we need your help. And I've got a real nice crystal ball for you, and throw it in. And instead, he gets Roland. And let's face it, I don't care how prepped you are. Nobody's ready for Roland.
Deserves Roland.
Nobody. That man is just—he's a lot.
Let's do the next two chapters when we come back.
Two, okay.
Since we have 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's do Overholser and The Way of the Eld for our next episode.
All right, cool. The Way of the Eld. So I want to say hi to new patrons real quick, and I have an announcement about a new sponsor that I'm pretty excited about, which you guys may have heard about on my Facebook page. What's that?
I have heard about it. Exciting.
So new patrons these past 2 weeks: Hannah Furr, Karen J. Horlocker, Tara Kuran, Niveditha Asokarahan, Clara Burkhouse, Emma Hepp, Bhakti Modi, Beth Epright, Vanessa Bray, Christina Bradford, Pablo Cordon, Catherine Warner, Jason Rosenberg, Brian Dickey, Donna Doherty, Devin Matthews, Melisha Thompson, Tawny Kinnebrew, Lori Reiter, and Ryan Stafford all just became patrons.
Awesome.
Welcome
guys.
to all of you delightful people. Thank you so much. Yesterday I reached 444 patrons, so that's exciting.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm going to be releasing the Godfather episode to celebrate having reached, because the goal was 429, which I don't know why. I've said this before. I don't know what I was thinking when I chose that number. I don't know where it came from. It's not like me. Like, I'm somebody who really, I like round numbers. Like, Owen was laughing. He went to the bathroom and he asked me to get him some gas. And unbeknownst to me, he was standing behind me watching as I did those like micro squeezes on the gas pump to get it to exactly $20. And it kept being like, no, you're full. No, your tank's full. No, it's full. Lady, what are you doing? And I was like, no, it's not at $20 yet. You can take it. You can take it. And when I was done and feeling very satisfied, unaware of how it must look to somebody else, I turned around to see Owen standing there with his eyebrows raised and his eyes wide, trying super hard not to laugh, just looking at me like, really? I was like, what? So yeah, 429. I don't know why, but
Beautiful.
My new sponsor is Akio Box, which I didn't know was pronounced Akio, which it's just like going to take forever for me to get used to this. AkioBox.com is their website, and if you are a Harry Potter fan, they have a monthly subscription box of curated, handmade Harry Potter items that they basically like search Etsy for creators and stuff, and they find really unique items, things that you aren't going to just go on Amazon and find, you know. And they are offering 10% off the first 3 boxes if you use code UNSPOILED. So I'm really excited about this because they have this amazing statement of solidarity on their website, which you guys, if you go under About, you'll find it. And it basically is like, LGBT rights are the bomb, Black Lives Matter, and if you don't like it, you can suck a dick because we don't give a shit. And
Nice.
Our business comes second to people being treated as human beings. So I thought it was great, and that was what made me reach out to them really about, you know, being able to do this with them. And they have some really cool stuff. If you go on their Instagram, they're at the Akio Box on Instagram. They post pictures of stuff that they had sent in previous boxes, and there's also a couple like videos on YouTube of people unboxing stuff, so you could see things that had been sent previous. And they're sending me and Rashawn our own boxes for August, so that we can unbox live on the air and get surprised by what we got sent. And I have no idea what's coming in the box. It's always a surprise. It's 3 to 5 items, and they're like really high quality. And I'm just super, super excited about it. So guys, go to akiobox.com and use code UNSPOILED. Get 10% off your first 3 boxes. It's a month-to-month subscription, so you can only get 1 box if you want. But yeah, I'm just super excited because they're a really cool company. They have a lot going for them. They seem like good people. And they're doing what they are doing with the subscription box is like unusual. There's just the fact that they are curating things the way that they are, and giving it that kind of personal attention is different. And they are on Cratejoy, and because that's where you can go to like see the reviews that different subscription boxes have gotten. And out of all of the Harry Potter boxes on there, they have the highest reviews. So people are the most satisfied with their stuff and packaging and timeliness and everything. So I feel very confident in this partnership, and I'm excited about it.
I just have one question about it.
Yeah.
Really, Akio?
Why? You mean how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
I know, right?
I've said Osseo my whole life.
I know. I looked it up because I watched the video of an unboxing, and it was not a video from one of their staff. It was just somebody who does promo stuff, and they said Akio, and I was like, I'm sorry, wait a second, what? And I went and looked it up, and yeah, that is officially how it's supposed to be pronounced, and that is how Harry says it in the movies, which I never even noticed. But yeah, that is the official pronunciation. I think I also did, because it just, yeah. I continued to say Osseo until I watched that video, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should like find out how this shit is pronounced before I go on the air and try and promote it to like thousands of people.
Sure, yeah.
It'd probably be a good idea to know what the fuck I'm saying. And I'm glad I did, because I would have said that shit wrong, and then probably my sponsor would have emailed me and been like, so you're cool and all, but you know, get the name of our product right. And I'd be like, right. Sorry. So yeah, that's what's going on with that. And coming up, as we talked about at the beginning of this, Miles and Anton and I will be reprising our roles of the 3 fates that talk about Game of Thrones. I'm the crone. Miles is the maiden because he's unspoiled and he won't be watching it. And
Oh.
Anton is the mother because he keeps us both from like being too angry. He's the peacemaker. Whereas I'm like curled up in my rocking chair with my walking stick that I like rap on people's shins as they walk by. That's how I am.
Yeah.
I'm
just like la la la.
But yeah, what we do, this is going to be a patrons only show because I'm tired of hate mail, so I stopped putting it out publicly.
Yeah, good. Fuck all y'all.
Exactly.
Not you patrons, you're cool.
But what we do is Anton and I watch the show. Miles does not. And then we write
I won't.
And then we write a multiple choice series of questions and make Miles guess the correct answer on what happened in the episode. And last season was great. So in a lot of ways, it was easy for Miles to guess the right answers because they were being consistently smart about the choices they made in most cases, except for that first episode, which was
That first episode seemed like it was rough.
Oh, so that's what I'm concerned about because the last season was great because Dorn wasn't in it.
I was actually kind of disappointed because, like, the first season went so well for me, or the first episode went so well for me. You know, I was like, ooh, yay, it's bad. Yay, it makes me happy. For those of you who don't know, I am a huge fan of George R. R. Martin's book series, A Song of Ice and Fire, and was a huge fan of the HBO adaptation of that series, Game of Thrones, until it started to suck in season 4, and then really started to suck in season 5, and then Sansa Stark got raped.
Mm-hmm.
And then
spoilers.
Yeah, so when that happened, I finished the season because I had committed to, and I declared that I was never going to watch the remaining shit on air, and a lot of people said, yeah, whatever, you'll be watching.
Did you ever go back and watch season 6 after
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to, honestly, but
I really think you should before we start watching season 7, because season 6 is like, if you can watch the first episode and please do a live like text on the Facebook group while you watch it because it's so hysterical.
Do you want me to watch 10 episodes of Game of Thrones by Monday?
Yes, I don't see the problem here. Okay, so do that, and also there are a couple battle scenes that are just phenomenal, like just so good.
I will try. I don't know if I can do that.
Yes, you can. Shut up. It's fine.
Yeah, you realize we haven't gotten to my plugs yet, right?
What are you talking about?
Are you going to learn about all the shit I'm doing?
I think I've made it very clear that I don't give a fuck about what else you're doing. That 100% of your time needs to be spent on things for me. I don't really understand what I was unclear about there, but hopefully we've cleared it up now. All right, so yeah, that's going to be coming up for patrons only, and I'm excited about it because it was super fun last season. So, all right, your plugs, Miles, go.
Oh shit! Well, I'm unprepared for that now. My plugs. So, y'all, if you're not already listening to the Smash Fiction podcast, please go and give us a listen on smashfiction.libsyn.com or on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Smash Fiction is a show that I do with my friends where we take fictional characters and put them into conflicting situations and have hilarious debates about who would win. Our most recent episode, Natasha, is one that I think is very close to your heart.
Ooh.
Because the match is Amaterasu, who is a sun goddess in the form of a wolf from the game Okami, versus Lion Jesus himself, Aslan.
Lion Jesus sounds like he's a liar, but he's also Jesus, so we don't really say anything about it, even though we're all aware.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was going to be our approach. It was not. We said a lot of things about how he was Jesus. And I was editing it this past weekend when it came out, and I was like, wow, this could potentially be construed as really fucking offensive.
I mean, he says that it is, though. Like, the author himself, it's fine.
I know, but it's just... I would love for you to listen to this episode, Natasha, and give me your feedback. Not only because I know you are a huge Narnia fan, or at least a Narnia connoisseur.
Yes,
perhaps?
very much. Yes.
So I'd be very interested of what you think of the arguments that were laid out. But yeah, I'd be curious to know what you thought of perhaps the overall tone of the episode. Interesting.
I will give it a listen. I will, because that sounds very fascinating to me, I have to say.
Yeah. I think it's a good show. I just, I worry that people might be upset. But you know what? It is what it is. If you're not one of those people who got upset about this episode, you should definitely go check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. We have multiple tiers of support where you can get various things. Probably the most notable ones being the ability to vote on future matchups. Our episode next week will be a fan voted match. No, I'm sorry. Our episode next week's going to be Edie from Mass Effect versus Cortana from Halo. The week after that will be the fan voted match. So that's coming up, and then I think after that is the episode that will feature one Roshan,
dun dun dun,
who is coming on the show to help me defend Minerva goddamn McGonagall.
Yay!
So if you want to listen to that shit, come back in at the end of the month. I think that episode will be coming out on July 30th. So keep an eye on the Smash Fiction for that. Keep an eye on our Facebook, our Twitter at Smash Fic Podcast, Tumblr. We got all that shit. So Smash Fiction is great. It's fun. And if you're not listening to it, you should. And if you do listen to it and you haven't left us a review on iTunes, you should do that too, because it's really important and helps us a lot. And if you've already done that, then go to Patreon and support us financially, because we're just all so poor. So poor. And we spend so much time on this podcast that we could be spending being less poor, and we don't. So
yeah, I hear that.
Anyway, I also have a blog, Universes of the Mind. It's at universesofthemind.com. I have nothing to report on that blog because, once again, I have not updated in a long time. July is a busy month, y'all. I'm still working on the Odyssey Storytelling podcast as well, which you can find on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, I've explained it before, but Odyssey Storytelling is a Tucson-based community storytelling group where every month people come together, usually like 5 to 7 people telling stories around a basic theme. And I produce these podcasts for them, and they come out twice a month. One of the episodes that comes out every month is the most recent live show, and one of them is more of an archive show, which is an episode that we recorded a while ago before we had the podcast that I then turned into a podcast. So the most recent episode, I think, was on the theme hiccups. And it's not just a bunch of people talking about this one time they had the hiccups. It's like symbolic and shit.
Okay.
So, it's like bumps in the road or snags in a plan. It's a really fun show.
Gotcha.
And then we got another archive show coming out later this week. And then we'll be releasing the episode that was based on our most recent live show, which the theme is escaping me because I'm a terrible, terrible person. Fucking hell, what was it? Natasha, you were there. What was it?
Wait, what?
No, you weren't there. I'm just kidding.
I'm like, don't put me on the spot and say shit like that.
Sorry, it was too funny. It was Emergency, was the theme of the show that will be coming out at the end of July. So yeah, I think that's it. That's what I got. That's what I'm doing, in addition to working and also job hunting and also moving. So, and also doing freelance fact checking work for Yes Magazine. So, got time to watch some Game of Thrones.
Yay!
By Monday, why not?
Yeah, I don't think I'm asking that much.
I mean, you're not really. You're not asking at all. You're demanding it of me.
Yeah, see, now we understand each other.
Yeah, no, I got it. Say it. I knew what was happening.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for being here today. And for
Thank you for having me, as always.
for being here on Monday also. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And I will see you in 2 weeks with 2 more chapters.
Yep.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.